you so much for being here today at the info session for the Community Foundation's Flexible Funding for 2024. If you can, there's an invitation in the chat. We'd love for you to put your name, organization, pronouns, and where you're zooming in from today. Looks like we have folks from all across the valley. Some folks in home offices, some folks in offices, I guess is the other term.
Yeah, you have to be explicit now.
We got some folks from the eastern side of the state.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I see a first person on the other side of the border in Connecticut. We know that we cross those borders all the time to support our organizations. Oh, we've got someone in Charleston who's thankfully safe and dry, but we know that there's a lot of flooding going on in the Southeast right now. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being here. I am Meredith Lewis, the Senior Director of Community Impact and Partnerships. We're really delighted to have so many folks join us. It's always good to see people this time of year. If I can just get a thumbs up from folks if you're able to see our screen share. It's a little welcome screen. Thank you so much. That means I know we're on track. First, I just wanted to introduce our team, the folks that you either see on the screen or know well. Actually, I will let them introduce themselves. Margaret, do you want to say hi first?
Hi, yep, I'm Margaret, and I am the grants administrator on the grants team. And I know quite a few of you from previous years, and it'll be nice to meet the new organizations.
Awesome. We like to joke that if you've emailed grants@communityfoundation.org, you have spoken with Margaret. Nicole Borden, who's our Senior Program Officer for Valley Creates, is actually on her way back from a Valley Creates meeting, but she'll be joining us, and all of our arts organizations are probably familiar with her. Next, I'm going to ask our newest colleague, Jennifer, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see everyone. My name is Jennifer McNeil. I'm the Senior Program Officer for Education and Economic Mobility, and I look forward to reading applications and learning more about your organizations.
Awesome. Jeff, you want to bring it home?
Absolutely. Jeff Markham Jr., Senior Program Officer for Equity here at the Foundation. Really excited to be with you all again, and really, really excited about this year's opportunity for you all.
Great. So I know that most of you know what we do, but I'll also share that we have spent some time in the last year really refining what it is that the community impact team does at the Community Foundation, and being able to tie that with some of the how we measure impact, what we want to do. So what we're really saying is that our team serves as the bridge between the organization, the Community Foundation, and the residents of the region. We also know that you also filled that role, right, of supporting residents, connecting them to their needs and the bigger issues. And we really serve oftentimes as the frontline part of the Community Foundation that's going to reach out to the entities that support residents. We think of our work into three buckets. The first is that we provide financial resources. That's why all of you are here to learn about this opportunity. We also support in capacity building, whether that is through directed training or one-on-one support around issues that you need. And we also try to provide networking opportunities so that all of you can talk to each other and learn from each other. Through our work, we grant and support nonprofit organizations, fiscally sponsored organizations, and we've added a new term of other social good partners. More and more, we've come to realize that the delineation between a nonprofit and a fiscally sponsored organization is really something that's driven by the US tax code. And so even though some funding opportunities like this one may have restrictions around it, we try to think about everybody who's supporting residents and who's trying to eliminate problems and make folks' lives easier. We also support students through our scholarships, and Jennifer is one of our key staff members in that. And many of you know we also work directly with artists through Valley Creates. So today we are talking about flexible funding, which is one of those specific financial resource opportunities. Flexible funding, we are now in our 4th year. And what's really, by flexible, we mean general operating support. It does not have restrictions on it, with the exception of a few basic criteria that we'll explain a little bit more. But generally, the idea is that you know your work better than we do. We don't want to tell you how to spend your money. We want you to do the things that you're great at. And so this is really to support your day-to-day operations and to make sure that you can fulfill your mission. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
Thanks, Meredith. Appreciate it. So a little bit of table setting for the flexible funding opportunity. We take a look back at last year's funding cycle, which we're in the midst of right now. So last year, we were able to fund 96 organizations through this process, giving away over $2.2 million worth of funds. Another important piece is that over 300 organizations applied for funding. And so you can see that it is incredibly competitive. There is a significant gap between those organizations that applied for funding and that were actually funded. 86% of those organizations were funded primarily in one of CFWM's focus areas, which we will identify and talk about in just a moment. What's great to know about and part of today's conversation is that those focus areas have expanded in certain geographic locations, and we'll talk more specifically about that. But another key piece of this, and something that's important to note, is that we are looking to be in position to fund organizations almost exclusively in those focus areas. And so part of the conversation that we will be having concerning eligibility or organizations' opportunity to be funded may be difficult in some ways, because there are incredibly deserving organizations in our region, but there is a finite amount of funds. And so we are looking to focus on organizations that are doing their work in our focus areas in the region. We do want to make sure that new and emergent organizations are applying for funding and being funded. And so last year, over 80 organizations, or around 80 organizations, applied for the first time, which means they hadn't received a grant from us through any of our mechanisms, including donor advised funds. And 18 of those organizations did receive awards last year. And here you can see the breakdown in where our funds are situated. And this goes in alignment with our geographic restrictions related to some of our funds that we utilize to fund for this mechanism. So what's new? A lot, quite frankly. MassMutual, we have a new partnership with our friends at MassMutual Foundation, in which they've granted us $500,000. You may have heard of this, to award to organizations that operate within their focus areas. These will be primarily organizations that are Springfield serving, and we'll talk specifically about what MassMutual Foundation's focus areas are. In addition, we have received some funds in Franklin County that are restricted for that area. We're really excited about these opportunities. They grow our ability not only to fund outside of CFWM's focus areas, but in regions that have incredible need, and we want to be able to meet that need. Other issues, other eligibility changes this year. Of course, there's the expanded focus areas by region. We'll talk specifically about that. We are looking at this year a $10 million cap in organization size. And that's really a function of the way that we're thinking about having impact with our funds. And we know there are many organizations that are larger than that an influx of general operating dollars allowing them to take on a project or program could be really important for them. But at this moment, this is where we're looking to focus on organizations that are under that number. That connects directly with, we will not be funding 2- and 4-year colleges or universities as a part of this process. The rationale is along the same lines. Large organizations who are well-resourced and our funds may not have the type of impact that we expect to have within those organizations. And we will not be funding organizations that are connected to municipal or government agencies. And you're thinking of Friends of this library or Friends of this particular school. We will not be funding within this grant opportunity. Thanks. So what are we funding? told you everything we won't, or at least some of the things that we're not necessarily looking to fund at this moment. But these are these are not shifted from the last 2 or 3 years in terms of what the focus areas for the foundation and particularly flexible funding focus areas are. And these are for all regions. And so our regions include, of course, Hampden, Hampshire, and Franklin County, the entire valley. And so these are the primary focus areas that we are looking to fund out of this process. One is organizations that are connected to doing racial justice work. As an understanding of dismantling systems of racial inequity, and we know that provides a framework of dismantling all other forms of oppression. We're looking to support organizations that are fostering inclusive communities, eliminating systemic barriers, and advancing social change. Through our post-secondary education and training focus area, we are looking to support efforts to equip individuals with tools and knowledge necessary to meaningfully access the workplace. As a part of our Strong Start for Children focus area, we are looking from birth to the age of 5 children develop more rapidly than at any other times in their lives. And so Strong Start for Children helps to set the foundation for their future success, health, and well-being. We're looking to strengthen bandwidth, skills, resiliency of those who provide care to children before kindergarten. This is not just limited to early childhood education organizations, but also professional development for early childhood education providers and direct cohort-based support related to parenting knowledge and skills. Another important note here is that for this particular focus area, it can be, we know that we have a lot of human service organizations that do early childhood education work. And so you can be a part of a larger organization, but your answers within the application should be addressed specifically for this portion of your work within your institution. And lastly, but maybe most importantly, our arts and vibrant creativity ecosystem through our Valley Creates work. Obviously, we're looking to support artists and arts organizations in our region doing critical work of advancing creativity. We are, as a part of that process, specifically organizations with an operating budget of less than 500,000 are considered and prioritized. Also, one important note is that this focus area does not include humanities or historical societies, but we encourage those organizations to connect with funders in our region like MCC or Mass Humanities. And of course, we appreciate the creativity that many organizations bring to their work, but will not consider non-arts organizations as a part of this focus area. So if you're an organization that has maybe an arts project within some of the programmatic work that you do within your organization that is not for us considered an arts organization, may be funded in some other pocket within our focus areas, but not specifically as a part of Valley Creates. And of course, if folks have questions, please, Jennifer, Meredith, and Margaret are in the chat trying to answer some, and we'll have an opportunity at the end for folks to come off mute and talk to us directly. Okay, so Mass Mutual Focus Foundation, and with their generous support through and support of our mechanism of reaching people right where they are in terms of our general operating grants process, have a focus on financial resilience, and they've identified 4 focus areas as a part of that. One is building networks. So the idea of connecting people builds social capital, which creates a financially strong community where people can support each other. So they're looking to fund organizations that take collaborative approaches to break down silos, coordinate among systems, and connect people to critical resources so people can meet their basic needs and achieve goals. 2 is fostering financial health. The idea being that when people experience less debt, more savings, and improved credit, they're able to take advantage of future opportunities. So they're looking to fund expand financial capabilities and increase access to affordable financial products that help build financial resilience long term. These other the last two components are almost directly connected to the work that we are doing as a part of our focus areas as well, in terms of fulfilling basic needs. When people's most basic needs are met, they can focus on things that make their lives better. And so they are seeking to fund organizations that help reliable childcare, that it accommodates work schedules, increase food security, and safe and affordable housing, whether that means renting or owning. And also to expand employment opportunities, which is directly connected to the work that we're doing in post-secondary education and training as well. So what's important to note about the MassMutual funds, I think I notated up front, is that these are funds that are going to be geographically restricted to organizations that serve the Springfield area, serve the immediate Springfield area. And so if you have any questions or qualifying, or need to know if your organization qualifies, you can reach out to us directly. But an organization should be applying if you are in this focus areas in Springfield, and you will be considered as a part of that pool. Lastly, in terms of our new focus areas that are geographically restricted, we'll talk about the Franklin County funds. We have generous partners in Franklin County who identified an incredible need there and focus on family and economic resilience being what is wanting to be funded out of these particular funds. And so food security being incredibly important, housing security and basic service needs, and that means specifically, or maybe not specifically, increased access to basic service needs such as health, transportation, and other human services. I think I saw something in the chat because I'm trying to roll through and seeing questions come up. An important thing for you all would be related to, and maybe the biggest question is, like, how do I apply for all these different funds? There's all these different tracks for getting funded. And the next slide should answer the question. It's one application. So you do not have to apply specifically for the MassMutual funds if you're a Springfield serving organization, or for the Franklin County funds if you're a Franklin County organization. One application, and the program officers such as myself, Meredith, Jennifer, and Nicole will sort you into the place that is best suited for your application to be considered. Okay. So a good step, the next part of applying or doing the one application is signing up for GLM. And I think if Margaret is there, she can walk through that process. If not, I'm happy to. I know you're trying to answer a bunch of questions in the chat.
Sorry about that. We were trying to answer some questions. Okay, so yes, when you click the link to get to the application, you will see this login page first, and you're going to type in your email address and your password if you know you have one. If you're not sure whether your organization has already received funding or applied to it, please feel free to reach out to me. If you just need to be added to your organization as a user, I can definitely add you to that. But if you know that you're a new organization to us, then you're going to click Create New Account. Once you've created your new account or you've logged in with your existing thing, you're going to be taken to this screen. If you're creating a new account, you will put in the information about your organization. You will also check off whether you are fiscally sponsored or whether you're a 501c3 or a different type of program. You'll fill in all your contact information, and then you're going to click Next. And you're going to go to your personal information, where you're going to enter the executive director of the thing and also of the organization, and also your information as well. You want to go to the next screen, Jeff? There you go. Once you've completed everything, or you've just logged in with your existing login information, you'll be taken to your applicant dashboard, which is right here. If you've applied to us in the past, you may see stuff listed underneath the active requirements tab. If not, you'll just see a screen just like this. Your information is on the left-hand side, the organization information is on the right-hand side. If any of that information has changed, please again, reach out to me so that I can make the revisions to the organization contact information. When you're on your application dashboard, you're gonna go up to the top and you'll see it circled in red. It says apply. You're gonna click apply and it will take you to the eligibility quiz. And that is right here. It gives you a brief summary of what the eligibility quiz is. The fact it's for Flex Funding 2024. You're going to click on Start Eligibility Quiz on the bottom right-hand corner. And that will take you into the quiz. You go ahead and answer the questions and it will tell you either whether you are moving forward or whether you are not appropriate for the funding cycle.
Yeah, and I think something that I wanted to note related to the eligibility quiz is that we are not looking to punish folks for not being in the focus area or whatever the case may be. It's really about an allocation of resources within the organization. We have folks here, we'll read the applications as they come in. As I said, we had over 300 last year. We'll read the applications. It's really about, and we'll find community reviewers to review them. But it's really for me, and I think for the rest of the team, about the allocation of resources within organizations, especially organizations that may be at this point under-resourced, to do all the work, putting together an application. Maybe if you're for a fiscally sponsored organization, you have to track down, sponsorship forms from a fiscal sponsor and all the requirements that we have for any individual organizations that's applying. And to do all that work and to not really be in contention to receive funding is not something that a burden that we're looking to put upon folks. And so we've tried to do that through the eligibility quiz to, and through other parameters. If you don't feel like that applies to you, if you're noted as someone who should not apply, and you want to reach out and talk about that, we welcome that. We welcome all conversations. A big part of this for all of us is developing relationships, even with organizations that may not be in our focus area and may not be funded with us right now. There are other resources that we can point you towards, and there's other funding opportunities or capacity building opportunities that happen in the foundation that we want to make you available to. But this may not be the right thing for you right in this moment, your organization in this moment. And there is the inherent paternalistic idea of telling folks that they're not, supposed to be applying for these fundings, but it's really just about what our focus areas are, and it truly is about not dispensing of resources that are so valuable for your organization in terms of your time, your people power, and your energy into something that may not necessarily be right in the moment. And so we were going to go through next a walkthrough of the application, but there's so many questions. I think maybe we pause here, answer some questions first before we then go into the application, because those will elicit a whole different set of questions. So if there are questions in the chat that maybe Jennifer, you want to lift up for Meredith?
Sure. We were just looking. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
We were just looking at it. We did receive a question saying, could you expand on the definition of other human services for the Franklin County focus area?
Yeah. So on that one, when we're thinking about housing and food security, and already in Franklin County, early childhood care will be covered, as well as post-secondary education and training. We're looking at those things that keep people physically safe and healthy. This is a new focus area for us. And so we also might be looking at the interconnection between mental health as well. But it's really like, if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're talking about those basic things that keep people alive and safe. And with all of this, you're going to hear us say this a couple times. If you have any questions about your individual organization, you'll see on the website, which we've posted, we're going to be in person. We're going to be in 5 locations. We're also going to have Zoom office hours, and throughout now and the end of the application process, but we really encourage you to do this earlier rather than later. Shoot an email to grants@communityfoundation.org, and one of us will schedule a one-on-one Zoom time where we'll talk about your organization. One of the things that we'll talk about a little bit on the eligibility quiz is, after you take it, we're going to send you, as Margaret said, you'll either pass or fail based on our eligibility criteria. In addition to that, whoever is the name on the application will get an email from us that will either say, we think you're a good fit. Those are going to be organizations that we know are in our focus areas, in the right geographic places. And that again does not mean that you're going to get funded. It just means that like you're on the right track. We would encourage you to apply. Some of you are going to get an email that says, we're not sure that flexible funding is a right fit. That either means that we know you're in a focus area and a geographic combination that unfortunately we don't have funding for. And in other cases, it might mean that we don't know your organization that well and what we can figure based on your mission statement and what you put in the quiz. It's raising some questions for us. That doesn't mean that you're ineligible and you shouldn't apply. It means you should come talk to us. We don't want you to spend time doing an application if we know the second we get that application, we're going to say, that's not, this isn't really eligible. That isn't the right fit, but we only know what we know. So we need to have conversations with you. And we really encourage you to do that eligibility quiz soon. Margaret's turning around responses within 48 hours because we just don't want you to fill out an application if it's not a right fit. We want to say, wait, we have a small opportunity coming in January that's really for some of our more restricted funds. There's another funder we want to introduce you to. We just don't know your organization. We still want to talk to you and we want to brainstorm how you can get more financial resources. So that's kind of how that eligibility quiz works. So a lot of questions about, should we apply for this focus area? That you tell us what you do, honestly, we'll then have a conversation. If you tell us that you're trying to fit into one of the focus areas, it doesn't help us understand who you are as an organization. And in the long term, that doesn't help us like really support you either with our funding or connections to other folks. And so just tell us what you do. We have another box and we didn't capture everything that everyone does here. So if we missed it, let us know. But that's the best way to go about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have another question. If an organization already receives funding from Mass Mutual, the Mass Mutual Foundation, can they still apply to this fund?
They can still apply for flexible funding. If you are funded, your funding will not come from the Mass Mutual funds. It will come from our funds. But again, it's one application. For those of you that might be familiar with our scholarship program, we have hundreds of scholarship funds. Students fill out one application and we say, oh, they might be eligible for this. They're not eligible for that. They're definitely eligible for this. We're doing that same thing here. So if you're a Franklin County early childhood organization, you might get funds from our Franklin County restricted fund. You might also get community foundation funds. If you're an organization in Springfield doing post-secondary education and training, you might get support through our Mass Mutual partnership. You might get support through community foundation. You might not get support. It's going to be really competitive. We'll figure that out for you. So you don't have to say, I'm applying for this one versus that one. There's nowhere in the application to specify that. That's our job. And that's why, again, as much good and honest information about who you are and where you work allows us to do our job and you can do your job.
The next question, if you have applied for a capacity grant, are you a new user?
If you have applied for a capacity grant, you are not a new user, but if you have applied for a capacity grant, which is one of our Valley Creates programs, do not apply until you talk to us because that is for artists and this is for organizations. So I would have some questions about what's changed in your status before you fill out an application.
Is there
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Well, I was just saying, if you happen to be an artist who works at an organization, those would be different things.
Yeah.
And so I just want to clarify that.
And all those questions of like, my emails changed. We know this is a small valley. You might have jumped from one organization to another organization, maybe used your personal email at some point. All those inquiries can go to grants. Margaret will tell you, are you in the system? Is your organization in the system? Is your organization in the system under a slightly different name? And that's why you can't find it. We'll tell you whose email it is. So sometimes I talk to someone and I say, great, you're at XY Community Center. I have, Betty Smith. Betty Smith hasn't worked here in 6 years. Okay, who's the new person? We'll change the email. We'll get you all updated. This is the time when we do all of that.
There was a question about the scoring rubric. If there is a scoring rubric, can you share that?
Yeah, so the scoring rubric that we provide to reviewers, we don't also provide to organizations. The main reason is that we use people that have lived experience and expertise as our reviewers, and some of those actually work at organizations. We manage conflict of interest, but we've decided to kind of put up the line before publicly sharing the rubric. As Jeff goes through the application, though, Jeff will highlight the most important questions that we value. They are mostly congregated at the bottom of the application in a section that is called grant request. You will see that those are the more important, the narrative ones. We also really look at board representation and the population you serve and how those people are how the board's representative of your population and how your population is involved in decision making. So those, if you're looking for a scoring rubric, those two sections will be the most important ones. And as Jeff walks through the application, as I said, he'll make sure to really point out those questions.
Another question, if you do not receive funds for this year, does it hurt or help you in the future?
Nope, you should. This is a thing that we would like to work on because right now we only have single year funding. It's something that we're really actively pursuing to try to figure out if we can do multi-year funding. But this means that organizations can and have to apply year over year. We do not penalize you if you didn't get funded last year. In fact, in our strategic focus areas, let's take the arts. We know that on any given year, some of our great arts organizations may not be funded. There are so many of you. We'll let you know, but in generally speaking, you should apply again unless we're really clear that, hey, like, this is just totally different from our priorities. But if you were told to apply and you don't get funded, unfortunately, you'll probably be applying again. We try to keep our application relatively consistent year over year, so hopefully it's not too difficult to apply again.
And we will reach out to folks if you're not selected as a part of this funding opportunity for an opportunity to have a conversation with us related to the application. And in that, that provides us a space to learn more about your organization and if there's any other resources that we're familiar with, or if there's other capacity building opportunities within the foundation's parameters that we could connect you to be a part of that. So there's no downfall in applying and not being funded, then applying again.
Yeah, let's maybe take one more question, and then I want to make sure we get to the application walkthrough, and we'll hang around. We are available for all the questions.
Yeah,
So
well,
I do have one
too.
more question that I think would be worthwhile
Yeah.
lifting up, and that is from somebody who is part of a statewide organization with a budget of well over $10 million, but their regional budget for this area is under the $10 million budget threshold. Should they go ahead and apply? And when they click that, do they click for the budget for their regional office, or do they click the budget for the statewide office?
Great question, Margaret. So that process is going to look a little tricky, but it's how we need to do it. You're going to choose it as if it's the entire organization, the statewide, or for some reason, if you're part of a national organization, we will only fund organizations who are part of a state or national organization if it is very clear that you have a distinct Western Massachusetts presence. That most oftentimes looks like we have a distinct Western Massachusetts budget. Meredith, this is the person, they're the director of the Western Massachusetts office. They're the director of our Springfield office. If you say our organization is statewide and therefore we cover a percentage of this region, we love that. We'd be happy to introduce you to some of our friends who fund at the statewide level. That is not what community foundations do. We are much more hyper-local than that. You will then fail the eligibility quiz. That's okay. You will then send an email to grants. That way we can have a one-on-one conversation. We really want to make sure that you're eligible. So we understand that those organizations, that there is a way in which the Western Massachusetts office or a regional office will be applying for a grant. But because eventually that check generally does go to the larger organization, we need you in our system as the larger organization. And again, we thought about some of you folks out there literally in this process where we said, hey, what's going to happen? It's a minority. And so we'll just get to spend more time talking to you. Great. So Jeff, I'm going to pull up the application and then keep the questions coming, and we'll do more questions after the application walkthrough. that sound good?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Great. We're in charge. No, I'm kidding.
So we're gonna go through the application relatively quickly, and one of the reasons that we're gonna do that is because we want to be able to, we have so many opportunities that we're going to talk about at the end for you to or chances to sit and talk with us related to any questions you have on the application. So we'll be in person, we'll be on Zoom, we're reachable by email as well. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to us related to the application. Okay, we're going to pull up the application now, or maybe not.
We are. Is that what folks are seeing?
Yeah, we have the dashboard in front of us.
Great. So when you come in here, as Margaret said, you'll click apply and you will get to the page that has the eligibility quiz. You will start the eligibility quiz. You will be given options if a 501c3 are currently fiscal sponsored. Most of you will be one of those. If you are not, you'll let us know. If you do not have a fiscal sponsor, that's really important for us to know right now. For those organizations, there are a handful of you that, like, the IRS definition is a church. That's technically also counts as a 501c3, though it's not. But again, I think the vast majority of you will be in here. Again, if you're a department of or a regional office of, you are a 501c3, you're at that bigger level. Your organization's focus area, we're asking for your primary focus area. We did give you the option to choose two. If you're confused about what to click, there are two things. One is go back and look at your mission statement, right? Like, your mission statement is probably going to focus in a smaller number of areas than what your work actually does. We know a lot of our work is pulling in and is very intersectional, but what is your mission? The other one is for those of you, and someone in your organization might know this, there's an NTEE code, which is basically a nonprofit taxonomy. It helps determine where your focus area is. Organizations also generally have one or two. We can help you look that up, but it is a classification. And so that really helps us give a sense of what is your primary focus. We know you have secondary and tertiary focuses as well. These are your organization's service areas. You can click all that are applicable. And so if you distinctly work in Springfield, you can choose both Springfield and Hamden. If you're a Holyoke-based and focused organization or Westfield-based, that would just be Hamden. If you're across the region, you can click all four. If you click none of the above, let us know, but our funding is restricted to these 3 counties. Your current operating budget, again, we've talked a few times about the $10 million cap. We know that some folks might be on the cusp. That's when you can send an email and let us know. And again, that's this current year's budget, just to make it clear for everyone. And financials, part of our application process, we just want to get a sense of where you are financially. We know that some organizations are thriving, for other ones, they may not be. That's okay. We do need to get that information a little bit. And so we generally ask for this year's budget, but we'll also ask for last year's P&L or revenue expense statement, just so we can get a sense of the money coming in and out. If you don't have that covering 12 months, please click no. We believe that startups are amazing. We've also seen that the Community Foundation, generally speaking, is not providing startup funding. We're happy to look at early organizations, but we generally don't fund within organization's first year. If me saying profit and loss or revenue expense statement just made your brain go psh, and not in a good way, please know that next Tuesday morning, we will have another Zoom webinar that will just be about how do you submit your budget and this statement for the foundation, for this grant application. We will go through exactly what we are looking for. We will provide templates if you need them. And so if you are like, this is too much, Meredith, math and money is really hard, I get that. You can come join me tomorrow, next Tuesday morning, and we'll walk you through it. When you're done, you will click submit eligibility. So I'm just going to put in some numbers here to get a positive response, because that's what we hope many of you will be getting. And it says your eligibility has been submitted. click continue to the apply page. If you did not pass, you will not get a continue to go to the apply page. It will tell you that you did not pass that. If for some reason you think you should have passed it, you'll email us at grants@communityfoundation.org, and continue will take you to the application. Here it is, flexible funding 2024. And there's this cute little apply button here. You will click apply. Please remember to click apply. If you are one screen earlier, you will see all the questions in preview mode down here. You can't submit in preview mode. We've had people try to do it. It's really disappointing. So make sure in order to apply, you have to click the word apply.
Okay, so at the top of the screen, you'll see the pertinent information to your organization. Obviously, there's a lot more information about our focus areas and eligibility as a part of this process, but let's dig deep into the application itself. Couple, kind of boilerplate anti-discrimination policy, grant-making policy that you want to affirm, physical location of your organization. And so the first major question is tell us about your organization. You want to explain to us, like somebody who's unfamiliar with your work, what are the problems you're attempting to solve or opportunities you provide to the community as a part of the process, as a part of your work in your programming, and how is that making our communities better? We want you to describe briefly the population that you serve. There's another opportunity to kind of affirm what kind of population you serve is that. And the next and probably most important question is, what's really important to us in this process is understanding how you are inclusive or centering the voices of your constituency, of the people that you serve as a part of your planning and programming process. So in this place here, you get to talk a little bit about how you either take feedback or develop understanding or have grown the work that you do in relation to the folks that you serve. Talk a little bit here where you can talk about the primary ethnicity served by your organization. And then maybe as important, where the organizational structure. Meredith talked about this before in the eligibility quiz. Most of the organizations here are going to be their own nonprofits, but if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, you would click here. When you do that, you will get some more options that you need to fill out. If you have not been a grantee of the foundation, you will need to find some documents in order to submit as a fiscally sponsored organization. We are having a training at the end of the month for fiscally sponsored orgs that can speak to you directly about acquiring some of this information. You will need to provide a proof of fiscal sponsorship form, which is a form that can be found on the website by clicking here. And that will bring up a document that needs to be signed by your organization and your fiscal sponsor. We want to find the signed agreement or the MOU between yourself and the fiscally sponsored organization. We are also looking for copies of meeting minutes or the equivalent, which is essentially that the board or the governance structure of the organization that is your fiscal sponsor has some understanding of the taking on of what they are supposed to do for you as a fiscally sponsored organization. And so if that is something that is difficult to track down, you can reach out to us and we can talk about the other opportunities or the other options for submission in this particular category. And then in the current audited or reviewed financials, we are looking for that from your fiscal sponsor. You are not required to provide audited financials as your organization, but if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, we'll be looking for that from the fiscal sponsor. And really what this is about is there is sometimes a misunderstanding around what this relationship can be, specifically for the fiscally sponsored organization. If you are paying an organization to take care of some of these things for you, then they should do this stuff for you. And so part of this for us is making sure that fiscally sponsored or fiscal sponsors in our region are doing the work that they're supposed to be doing for our smaller organizations that are accessing their services. So we're going to click that we have, so you don't have to fill out all these documents and we're our own. We're going to continue to go down. What's really important about some of our funding is there's significant amount of our funding that is geographically restricted, right? And so that means that some funding can only, from some of our particular funds can only go to certain areas. And so we ask you to affirm how much of your work happens in the 3 counties. This number should, if equal up to 100%. If you are an organization that is outside of our region, if you're like a statewide organization or a national organization, we want you to talk specifically about the amount of work that happens at your organization in our region. And again, Meredith talked about it's incredibly important for organizations that are statewide or national organizations to show significant presence in our area in order to be funded or considered.
Right.
And we do, oh, go ahead.
No, just to clarify, so if that's the case, if you work, let's say you're a statewide organization and you have 1 office in Worcester and you have 1 office in Springfield, it will be 50% in Hamden and 50% in other. When we read your application, we will see that you have an office in Springfield and we will understand that. But this other is also really important, because if you put 100% in Hamden County, because 100% of your work in this region is in Hamden County, that leads us to believe that all of your work happens in Hamden. And that's not an accurate picture. And that doesn't help us, particularly when we're dealing with our funds. And so that's important to factor in the other. It does not automatically disqualify you if this other number is big. It depends on what the nature of your work is in these other areas. But please, like, the total of these 4 adds up to 100. And it is for the organization wide.
And you'll see this is a new question related to organizations that significantly impact residents or support residents in Springfield. Obviously, that's connected to our new partnership with MassMutual. So an incredibly important question for us is around your board governance. And so we had asked questions in the past related to, like, tell us about the governance structure and how that works in your organization. We realized quickly that that does not matter to us. We have a president and a treasurer, and you use Robert's rules or whatever the case is. What's really important to us is, does your board reflect the community that you serve? And so I think a lot of times when we talk about this, folks will draw this along the lines of race and ethnicity, which of course is important, but that is not the most and the only way that you can be representative of the community within your governance structure. If you're an early childhood education organization, you have teachers, you have people who are parents, early childhood educators as a part of your board, or you bring in that expertise. We want to know about that. And also we want to know how you do that, right? For us, this provides an opportunity for us to do some learning and to do some sharing. For organizations that are really good at this and making sure that their governance structure is really representative of their communities, we want to know how well you do that, and if we can take from that and kind of extrapolate some of that information and give it to other nonprofits who are struggling in this area, we would love to be able to do that. We do ask about how many folks are currently serving on your board and how many identify as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, or other people of color. We do ask if your organization is executive director or CEO identifies as a BIPOC person. And we do want to get an understanding of your full-time staff. How many unique staff members do you have at your organization? Also, how many full-time equivalents do you have within your organization? And there is a drop down for percentage of staff that is made up of BIPOC folks.
One quick note, if you're fiscally sponsored, we know that you don't have an official board of directors or trustees. We hope that you have an advisory board. We will see that you're fiscally sponsored, and so we will look at that information as far as boards. If you're a fiscally sponsored organization and you don't have an advisory committee or an advisory board that serves in that structure, send us an email before you fill out the application. Let's just make sure organizationally you're kind of like at that development stage that is a right fit for flexible funding.
Okay, so the grant requests drop down here, and again with the arrows here, you can either drop down or lift up or collapse or expand any part of the application. So the project name is just Flexible Funding 2024. We find some really cool project names as a part of this grant, and it just makes it difficult. We just wanted to say flexible funding 2024, some cool name will not make you stand out. In fact, we will have to change it. So flexible funding 2024, this just allows us for our system to be able to pull this information a lot easier. We are going to be asking your organizational goals, and this is really where the meat of the organization, I'm sorry, of the application is. We want to talk about your goals and vision for your organization, your overarching goals for the immediate future and for the long-term future of your organization. We do want you to talk about what's happening now and briefly describe the current state of the work in any context that helps us understand the next few years within your organization. And that, of course, can include any major initiatives, challenges, or opportunities that you anticipate transpiring shortly. And then we want you to talk a little bit about your implementation strategies. What are your strategies for reaching your goals? And you can include key programmatic areas and initiatives. And then what is your capacity to reach those goals, right? And for us, we want you to describe the strengths, possible weaknesses, and growth efforts, and also thinking about all the resources that are at your disposal to achieve your goals, and not only limiting that to just the human capital, but also your knowledge as an organization and your experience. And so organizations that have been around for a while and have some expertise in the field, that's capacity. That's more than just the people that you have at the table. You have a long history of doing this stuff and doing it in a really exciting way. And we want you to talk a little bit about that as well. Next is the most fun part. Meredith, can you describe a little bit about pulling stuff from Candid?
Yeah. So this first one is fiscal end year, and you'll see this is the Candid symbol. Candid is a database of nonprofits. If you're actually enrolled and logged into Candid, we hope to have a few more questions in the future, but this is something you can actually click through. And if you have any questions about that, you can reach out again to grants. Margaret and I have been trying to make it easier for folks. The year-end fiscal year, you can just we need to know, does your fiscal year end December 31st, June 30th? You might be like Community Foundation, we end March 30th. It helps us read your financial statements. It helps us understand if we're looking, at a calendar year, at a half year. So just give us that date. Your organizational operational budget. So at the end of this year's budget, you should have a number. If your budget isn't balanced, that's okay. I hope you have a plan for why you're running a deficit. Give us the higher number. Give us the expense number. I'm going to assume that's the higher number. And then we're asking for 2 years of financial information. Last year's revenue and expense, or P&L, it basically shows money that came in, money that came out, and what was the difference between the two. At next week's webinar, we'll go a little bit more into what kind of expenses, what kinds of revenues we want to see, and what do you do if something was a little bit funky. And then we're also looking for this year's budget. A budget is not just your expenses. A budget is also the money that's coming in. We get really nervous if we see a whole bunch of expenses and we don't see the plan for you to bring that money in. You can submit these as 2 separate documents. We do not care about the format. If you already have a format that works for your staff, for your board, that is generated out of QuickBooks, we're happy to take that. If you have them in one document that is side by side, we will take that one document already. If you have a document that, for example, maybe shows last year's budget, last year's P&L, and this year's budget, you don't need to delete that other column. If you're okay sharing it with us, we'll read through it. And so we're trying to give options here. And again, starting next week, we will at that webinar release a template. We really want to be clear, you will not be penalized in any way, shape, or form for not using our template. It's why we don't actually put it up at the beginning. We want it to be in a format that is most easy for you to generate. For those that might be wondering, do we not care what happened before these 2 years? We do, but we get that information through GuideStar and Candid. We can look at previous tax forms. They also do a number of financial calculations. So we generally can have a sense of what's going on. And if we really have a question, we will reach out. Also, I should add, if there's something funky going on, you can put a comment here, which is like, we got this massive grant, but it was restricted, so it looks odd. Or we had a transfer, we started an endowment. We knew that we were running a deficit because the previous year we got a whole bunch of money, and just like let us know. We are not in your board meetings and your staff meetings, and so we don't have a good sense of the context around your budget. So if there's something that would help us really understand it, we give the option for a narrative place.
Yeah, so there's just an opportunity for closing comments. If there's anything that you think we missed, a question that we didn't ask that you want to answer, you can feel free to do it there. And additional materials, we're not looking for too much. If you had we're not looking for anything. Let's be clear. If you wanted to add a annual report or something of that nature, that tells us a little bit more about your organization, you feel free to add it there. Also, we ask a little bit about potential training topics. So we early in the spring, we did a financial 101 kind of for our nonprofit partners, but these are other training topics that we've seen a need for. And if you could affirm that these are some of the things that you are looking to have, that we can provide some space for folks for us to put together some sort of workshop or webinar related to any of these, or if there's something that we haven't identified, please let us know.
Jeff,
And
oops,
yes.
we do have a couple of other questions, simple ones. Number one, they just wanted to know what's the time and date for the financial webinar, if you could lift that up again.
Oh,
Yes, it is going to be next Tuesday. It is the Tuesday, the 13th. It is at 10 a.m. and you can find the Zoom registration for that on the page on our website with flexible funding. Any information related to flexible funding will be on that webpage. We're putting it all in one spot for you.
And then one other question, Jeff, is can you just talk about the collaborate button on the application? Somebody wanted to know if they wanted to add extra people to their application, how to go about and do that.
So you click the collaborate button.
Yeah. So
And you'll be able to email the person, and now you can give them permissions either to view, edit, or they can submit. So you can work in collaboration with folks within your organization there.
Right. Yep. So that button is always in the top right-hand corner of the application.
Mhm.
And you're good to go.
Right. And for those of you that are want to integrate your Candid profile, you'll see these are the buttons to do so.
Let's go back to, we're gonna just finish up with a couple of things about how to connect with us and some final things related to the application. If folks need to go, thank you for being with us. Here's how you can connect with us in person. We're gonna share some dates with you. Tomorrow, we are gonna be together in Westfield at the Athenaeum from 10 to 1 p.m. in the committee room on the 9th. So that's this Friday, 9 to 12 at Franklin County Co-op in the community room from 9 to 12. Next week in Wilbraham at the library from 12 to 3. Urban Food Brewed in Springfield on August 15th from 2 to 5. And then rounding it out at Happier Valley Comedy in Hadley on August 20th from 2 to 5 p.m. Those are opportunities. And I think somebody had mentioned this in the question earlier that may not have been answered about connecting with us. And these are good ways to start. If you want to come and talk to us about your organization, even if flexible funding, you've already identified that flexible funding may not be the thing for you this year, you can certainly come and talk to us about your organization and get to know us a little bit better. We also will be able to connect with you all via Zoom and virtually. That's on the next slide. We will be doing another one of a drop-in session on August 30th from 10 to 1. And then from on September 10th to the 13th from 9 a.m. to 12. If you have questions related to your application, you can feel free to jump into Zoom, and either Meredith, myself, Jennifer, Margaret, or Nicole will be there to answer any of your questions. We have another info session. Meredith talked about next week about budget on August 13th. August 23rd, we'll be essentially doing this again from 9 to 10 a.m. And then specifically for fiscally sponsored organizations from 10 a.m. to 11, identifying that has been a critical need and making sure that folks have their best foot forward and all the documents they need in order to apply. And then I think there's one more slide outlining some of our deadlines. And so online grant application will close at noon, September 16th. Technical support through the grants email is available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And we're going to review applications, and you don't need to reach out because once decisions are reached, funding decisions will be sent via email on or before December 10th. And award release no later than January 15th. And again, these funds are to be expended in calendar year 2025. So if there are any more questions, I think some of us have a couple more minutes. Feel free to jump off.
Yeah, I want to jump in for those folks that are still here for just 2 clarifications. The
Okay.
first one is the last day to submit is September 16th. But as we mentioned earlier, the eligibility quiz, not only do you pass fail, within 48 hours, you get an email from us telling you if flexible funding is a good fit. If you proceed to do that eligibility quiz on September 16th, or even the Friday before, that does not give us enough time to give you an email to tell you whether or not you should apply in the first place. That means don't wait to do the eligibility quiz. Please, I know that you guys are so busy. I know that means that grants are written at the very end. We understand, we see when they come in. The eligibility quiz is not a trick quiz. It really should take 3 minutes to 5 minutes. You know where you're based. You know the work that you do. I hope you know your budget. Please, please, please take that. That puts you on our radar so that we can be in touch with you. The other thing for those folks on the regional budgets, I just want to clarify, we definitely also need your regional budgets, but we also do need a sense of your org budget. So we're going to need those kind of side by side. So if you're a statewide agency, I would say just email us at grants. Let's set up a quick conversation. Again, it's a minority of folks out there. Over the past 3 years, it has been the minority of the folks that we have funded as well. So we really want to make sure that this feels like the right fit. Let's have a conversation. Those structures can look really different between each other. So help us get to know you, and then we can give you the right guidance. And yes, I just saw a question about that. On the eligibility quiz, you're going to put your organizational budget. The reason why, even for a regional organization, we have to look at the organization is because, again, these are general operating grants, so they're going at the organization. When we used to do project grants, we could say this grant is like limited to this thing. We also know that generally speaking, project grants are not as helpful as general operating. You want to spend it on whatever you need to be able to spend it on. And so this is the give and take a little bit, is moving towards general operating, which benefits most folks, is a little bit more challenging with larger organizations where you're going to have to get some restrictions on the grant in order for us to grant to you. If folks want to raise their hands, you can. I know people are dropping off, which is great, but we do have time. If you have your own questions, you can raise your actual or your Zoom hand, whichever one you like.
Okay.
Great. So I think we're going to officially end it here. If you have like an individual question that you want to ask as people are falling off, we'll stay around for a little bit, but otherwise, I don't know, like who's been counting how many times I said grants at communityfoundation.org, but bingo, over under 13, just email us there. That is absolutely the best way to reach us. It is a shared email box. So you reach all of us at one time.